Yay. Hello everyone. We're just gonna start at 12:05. There might be some late people, so sit tight.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I forgot to submit my Bugbusters assignment. I forgot to submit my Bugbusters assignment.
That's okay. You can talk to your mentor about it.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's 12:05. I think we could get started. Just gonna share my.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Thank you. Oh, I'm just gonna adjust a couple things. Okay, that's good. Oh, sorry. Gonna bring that over there. Okay. We're in session number 3 today, and let's get started. I hope everyone's had a pretty decent week, joining me on this nice Saturday afternoon. So about today's session, if you remember from last session, we'll review like what variable scope is and the global keyword. We'll also talk about another data type called Booleans. And if you remember what data types are, like there exists like integers, floats, strings, which is text. In this case, there's another one called Booleans. We'll also touch something very important called if and else statements. And we'll sort of follow on to that topic with some logic operators. Nice. Okay, let's just review a bit of what scope is. So when variables are created inside a function, say like setup or draw, they actually don't exist outside of the function. You can only sort of like access them or work with them just inside setup and draw. But if we define variables outside of those functions, they're called global variables. And if we want to use them inside our setup or draw, then we need to use the global keyword. And this is just some example. So in this case, x equals 10. Remember, variables could take any value, could take a string. In this case, it takes an integer, which is 10. And we create x as a global variable. We have our setup, that's fine. But then in draw, if we want to use that global variable x, we have to specify it at the very top. And then, yeah, and we can now use x like a regular variable. So that's just quick recap from last week's session. Let's talk about something a bit more interesting, Booleans. So Booleans, like to really just put it simply, it's just something that's either true or false. That's pretty much it. So I'm assuming you guys are in high school. I in this case, since you guys are in high school, I'd set that value as equal to true. And keep note here, the true has to be capitalized. But is it summer right now? No, it's like March. So you set that to equals false. And Booleans are useful for making comparisons. Like I have like if I had a friend named Adam, they have 3 apples. Do I have and I or sorry, that's a bad example. If like I'm at a roller coaster and then I have to meet a specific height, a Boolean could just tell me, yes, this person meets a specific height, or false, that person doesn't meet a specific height. So it could be used for logical statements like that or comparisons. And on comparison operators, I'm sure you're a little bit familiar with like in math, it's kind of the same thing. So we have this table of operators down here. So if we want to make a comparison with say numbers, you could use the less than or greater than, but there's also less than or equal to. But if we want to check if something has an equal value, we have to use a double equal because this thing is used for comparing values, but a single equal sign is for assigning values. A single equal sign is used to create a variable rather than compare variables. And if we use these comparison operators, like greater than, less than, then Python will tell us that that expression or that statement will either be true or false. And that could be really useful for some logic that we want to create within our code or game in the future. Yeah, so these are just some examples right here. So if we print 1 is less than 4, well, then that's going to print true, obviously. But if is A, in this case, A -5, is it greater than or equal to 0? No. So then this expression here would print false. And similar to here, x is not equal to y, so is 0 not equal to 57? And yeah, that's true. So then it prints the value of true. So we learned about these operators. We could sort of combine them to make sort of like conditions in our code. So let's look at the first statement. The statement programming is fun and programming is useful is true because they're both of the statements, programming is fun and programming is useful, are like valid. But the statement Halloween has candy and Halloween has Easter eggs, they're false. So that because even though Halloween has candy, that would be true. By using and, it kind of implies that Halloween has Easter eggs also has to be true in that sense. Oh, what about the input stuff? We'll like go into that later. But the statement Halloween has candy or Halloween has Easter eggs is true because one of that means that means either Halloween has candy, that statement, in addition to Halloween has Easter eggs, as long as one of them is true, then the entire sentence is true, if that makes sense. Yeah, Halloween has one of those things. And these are like all of these different like logical operators. We have let's like skim over these. So in the first like I guess you could say sentence, 5 is greater than 3 and 6 is greater than 3. And that's true because this expression, this statement is true and this statement is true. So overall that sentence is true. But 5 is greater than 3. Okay, that's true. And 6 is less than 3. That's false because uh because if we use an and, both statements have to be true for the entire thing to be true, if that makes sense. Same thing here for or, 5 is greater than 3 or 6 is greater than 3. That's also true, but 5 is less than 3. Okay, that's false. Or 6 is less than 3. That's also false because both statements are false. But there's also another thing that we could use, which is called not, and it's true only if the variable of the Boolean statement is false. So not here we have is 6 less than 3? That is it's false, but then oh sorry, it's like is 6 less than 3? Is that false? That's basically what we're asking in this sentence here. But if we're saying that is the statement 6 greater than 3 false? That's what we're asking in this statement down here. But although although there's a bit of jargon going around, I apologize for that. But you could see that by combining sort of like and or not, you could sort of create you can make your code a bit more intelligent in that sense. So I'm not going to go too over this, but this is like these are some useful reference tables called truth tables. And you could I believe you could see them on the slides, but you could see that in a Boolean statement, if we're using the and, if it's true and true, then it's true. But if it's true and false, since one of them is false, then the entire value is false. But for the or conditions, if at least one of them is true, then the entire thing is true. Okay. So with that in mind, with Boolean statements in mind, we're going to move into something called if statements. So if statements sort of allow us to run code based on some condition. So a basic, like I believe everyone uses like if statements like in their daily lives actually. Like say if it's like snow, if the weather is like negative 20 degrees Celsius outside. See how we're using if, weather, if the weather is negative 20 degrees outside, wear a jacket. But if the weather is plus 20 degrees Celsius, then do not wear a jacket, wear shorts, something like that. But a common way to describe if statements is using sort of like something called a flowchart, which is this little diagram right here. So if statement, if it's true, then we do the code inside of the if body. So it could be like if the weather is hot, and that's true, then we wear shorts. Else, then we wear a jacket. And this is just one example. I'm I would imagine some people have like some intelligent like furnaces that know when to turn on based on, I guess, like the weather or the internal temperature of your house. But in this case, if the house temperature is less than 20 degrees Celsius, then we turn the furnace on. That would make sense. And if the house temperature is greater than 25 degrees Celsius, then uh, the furnace on, we'll turn it off, equals false. And in order to create if statements, we have to add the colons, and the code that we want to run inside of the if statement, we have to indent it. So just keep that in mind. Okay, and I hope you still remember like drawing things in Trinket, but this is like an example of a disappearing ball. So this function, this code right down here called line, it draws this entire thing. But if you remember, we explored something called mouse X, and remember that this is our 0, 0 point. Oh, sorry. This is our 0, 0 point. And when we're increasing in X, we're moving this way. So basically, this code just says that if your cursor here is beyond this line, it's going to disappear. The ball is going to disappear. And on another note, if we do have, you could write multiple if statements for something, but there's another very useful thing called else statements. So we could say if a condition is true, do something, but or else or otherwise, just do a different thing. So this is what it looked like. This is what the logic would look like. So this is the code before the if statement, could be like up here. And then we have the if statement. If it's true, then we do the code down here inside the if body, and then we exit. We just do the code at the bottom. But if this if statement is false, we'll move on to the code down here. Do a code inside the else body. And one example is if I'm driving, send calls to voicemail, else send calls to the phone. And if we're talking about sort of the weather example I was making earlier, if if it's hot outside, wear shorts. Else, put a jacket on. And another thing to keep in mind is sort of like the order of execution. So if you go back here, Python, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but the code at the top that you have, it's Python likes to read your Python script from like the top to the bottom. So in this case, the code inside the if statement is executed only if the condition is true, which is right here. So if this condition is true, we do something, but we don't proceed to the else. We just like skip over that. But if this condition is false, we skip over this code and we move on to the else, and then we do the rest of the program. And like just like what the slides say here, code inside the else statement is executed only if the condition is false, only if this guy is false. And any code before and after the if statement is executed normally. So let's look at another example, the mirrored ball. So if the mouse is like on the left side of the screen, the left side of this line here, then we just draw the ball as normal. But if we move it to the right here, we have to mirror it in that sense. In this case, we're not changing the y value. We're changing the x value of where we're going to draw our ellipse, our circle. So a very, very creative way is just to do 500, which is probably the window size minus the x. And I just want to like show you what the code looks like for a bit. This is the mirrored ball. You guys don't have to worry about the specifics of it. If you want, maybe you could take a screenshot of this code. You don't have to worry about this. But say we have this line here. Oopsies, I'm going to stop that. Look what I'm doing down here. I'm going to print mouse X. And as you can see at the bottom here, it sort of prints where my cursor is in terms of how far it is, the distance in, I guess, in the left and right. But see how as I approach here, we get to see, we could print out what the mirrored center looks like down here. And see the actual location of the mouse. We do 500. So in this case, 500 minus 367, that will give us 133. And that's what the new center of our ball is going to be drawn at. So I just wanted to give you that little tidbit. But if you're using something related to cursors, try printing out the mouse's X and Y position. So you could develop your code a bit more intelligently. Let's go back to the slides. Okay, so I want everyone to go to Top Hat. We're going to do our first quick question. Oh, sorry about that. And everyone just look at that. Sorry, I gotta pull up Top Hat. Sorry. Oh, before we go into that, Tanisha just had a general question. How does the ball disappear? Well, really, you could just like not print out the. You could just avoid printing out the ellipse altogether. Okay, I'm gonna. Oh, sorry. Present the Top Hat question. Start presentation. Everyone see that? Hope so. I hope I didn't accidentally put the Thursday session. Accidentally did that in the first session. Oh, okay. I guess we still have responses. But I'll go back to here. Oh, sorry. Okay. I'm gonna put a pause on the Top Hats. Sorry about that. I forgot to explain the quick question. I'll get right onto that. Oh, okay, I have the right session. Okay. Sorry about that, Kanto. Okay. But I'll explain the quick question. Sorry, I was over myself. So this is the quick question. So with the previous code, with this code that we have here, what color is the background and the ball when the mouse's X is 100? So remember to refer back to these like logic operators. Think about like this if statement, like would it be true or false? And then how would that affect this else statement? Are we going to skip it? Are we just going to proceed to the code down here? So think about that for a little bit and try to like, oh, and these comments here tell you like the background would be red, blue, and green. So just think about that. I'll resume the Top Hat. Oopsies. And I'll open it again. Sorry about that. There. The mouse is X. So just think about like this, the if and else statements. And if we're skipping over something, or are we still executing code after the if and else statements? Okay, okay, nice. We have the responses in. Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go. Okay, 20 seconds. It's about like one person. 10 seconds. And you know what? 36 people answered. Okay, time is up. See the responses. Okay. Background is blue. Nice. Let's see the correct answer. Yes, that is correct. The background is blue and the ball is yellow. So let's go over that code for a bit. Oh, yeah. Slides. So we have some code like at the top here. That doesn't matter. But say like I move my cursor like to mouse X. Say mouse X is equal to 100. Let's go to the first, let's hit the first if statement. Is, in this case, is 100 less greater than 250? Unfortunately, obviously not. So that's false. So we skip the if statement and we move to the else statement because the else statement takes care of all of the cases when the if statement is false. So we go to our else statement, we set the background to be blue, and we also we also set the color that we want to green. But after the else statement, we still have some code to run in the yellow section. Or no, sorry, not in the yellow section. We still have some code to run after the if and else blocks. And in this case, we kind of reset our paintbrush to yellow. So in that case, so although we dipped our paintbrush into green, the code that we wrote before said that, oh, we need to dip it back to yellow. And for that reason, the ellipse or the circle that we draw is yellow. Okay. And let's go into our first exercise, which is the teleporting ball. So let's draw like in our step 1 and 2, 3. Let's first draw the circle at the top left hand of the corner. And we have to make the circle move right until it disappears. And when it disappears off screen, we want it to like respawn back to the other screen. So it's like an infinite loop. And remember from last week's session, you should be using variables called like speed to adjust how fast the ball is moving to the right. But here are just some like food for thought. So obviously you do want to use an if statement here, but how are you going to use an if statement? And what position does the circle disappear? More specifically, what X value do you have to sort of like tamper with or manipulate so you could replay the ball back over here? And then, yeah, use an if statement to reset the position of the circle. And with that, I think we'll go into our breakout sessions for a little bit. See you guys there.
Hey Mehak, I'm not sure why, but it's just saying that I can't share my screen. Is it possible if that can
Yeah,
change?
sorry about that. I
Thank you.
updated permissions.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry, could you put me in the room with Miriam?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I hope everyone kind of we had like 50 minutes in that breakout room. So I hope you got to ask your mentor a couple questions. But what I told my group is that the gist of the code here, you just remember that the ellipse is the center of the ellipse could take a certain x value. So you just set x initially equal to 0, then you sort of add x incrementally. And then with the if statement, you could say that if the x value sort of exceeds the window size of whatever window size that you wanted it, then you could just reset x equal to 0 and the circle will sort of like replay again. But that's sort of the gist of the exercise here. So we've talked about something called if statements. There's else statements. Whoa, what about like elif statements? So I'm hoping that like from just like the name it in and of itself, it's sort of like rings a bell maybe. So this is what like the if, elif, and else statements. So let's look here. We have this price. If in this case, if the price is greater than 40, ooh, we could say that it is too expensive. But if it isn't, if it's greater than 30, and that's true because it's 33, then it is a good deal. Or so, then it is a good deal, sorry. So if we look back into sorry. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. Sorry. Okay. My bad. So, my bad. We have if, elif, and we have else statements. So there we covered if and else statements. We now there's another thing called elif statements. Okay. So we have sorry. Let's look at this code again. If, elif, and else statements. And let's look here. Say we're like haggling someone for a price. So let's say our initial price is equal to 33. If the price is it's like more than $40, you might say it's too expensive. So let's look at here, I'll have my laser pointer. We have our price here. If it is greater than $40, yes, then it's too expensive. But if not, we're going to proceed to another sort of like question that we're going to ask. And this other question that we're going to ask ourselves is the elif statement. So elif, so in this case, we ask again, is the price greater than 30? It is actually, it's $33. In this case, yes, we say it's a good deal. And Elias is asking one general question. Is there a limit to how many elif statements that you can insert? No, you could have same thing goes with like if statements actually. I don't know if you know the game. Do you know the game Undertale? I think it's actually notorious for having like 1,000 like if statements or something in its code. It's a bit I was like some like little talk in the game dev community. And Yusuf, I'm hoping this is like a general question. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's the difference between an if statement and an elif statement?
An elif statement. Yeah. So I'll get to that. So the if statement, say this is true, or no, say this is false. The elif statement is gonna cover sort of like any cases where the if is false. We're gonna ask a follow-up. The elif statement is kind of like a follow-up question in our code.
Isn't that what the else is though?
Sort of, but the else is like if all else like fails or the else statement sort of covers like all of the other cases that we don't need to ask questions with, if that makes sense. So the if statement is our initial question, elif is our follow-up question, And the else statement covers all of the other cases that are just general, all of the cases that we don't need to ask follow-up questions with. Does that make any sense, Yosef?
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, that's a good way of putting it. So if statement is sort of our first question that we're going to ask. The elif statement is sort of our follow-up question if it's needed. And the else statement is our conclusion if for cases that don't sort of require a follow-up question. So really, so in this case, our first question is it greater than $40? Okay, that's too expensive. Is it greater than $30? Okay, if it's in the range between $30 to $39, okay, that's a good deal. But for anything below 30, we print that's a great deal. And anything below 30, you don't really, in this case, you don't really need to ask a follow-up question. You don't really need to ask an elif. You don't need to put an elif statement. You could just say else. It's a great deal. And yeah, you could use multiple elif blocks in the same if statement. Okay, and one more question. Yeah, Tanisha?
The first, for example, in the first statement, it says greater than 30. So there won't be like a range created by that, right? Between 30 and 40. It'll just be everything greater than 30, right?
Sort of. So, when we say that, you see the first if statement, right? Price is
Yeah.
greater than 40. We're saying
Yeah.
that anything between $41 and above.
Yeah.
It's too expensive. But our price here is 33. So that means actually we're gonna skip this first if statement and we're gonna move on to the elif statement. And the elif statement is asking is by creating this elif statement, you kind of indirectly created sort of a range of values, if that makes any sense. Yeah. In the chats, Mahak said that it sort of presents another condition. So you see the if statement, it's greater than $40. If not, we're assuming that the current case is like between $31 to $39. And if the elif statement doesn't catch that, then we're assuming it's less than $30. Uh, does anyone else have any more questions? I know it's a little bit, I guess, unusual. No other questions? Okay. But I think a good way to think about this is if you have an important question, an important initial question, use an if statement. If you need a follow-up question, then you use the elif statement. And if you need to address all the other cases, then you just use the else statement. And one more question before we'll move on to the next slide. Yeah, Ranveer.
So, how would you use this in an actual piece of code?
Like, I guess like in a real world example, sort of like that.
Yeah.
I could think of, say that you're making, if we like go back to, I think I was making an analogy about like the roller coaster. So if someone say that a roller coaster only accepts people 5 foot and above. If or no, doesn't accept, sorry, I'll rephrase that again. Say that there's like a certain kids ride and it doesn't accept people that are like 6 foot and above. So you could use your if statement. If height is greater than 6 foot, you could print not allowed to ride. But elif, if that's false, say the person is under 6 foot, you could ask elif, is the person taller than 5 foot? And in that case, the person is allowed to go on the ride. But but otherwise, if the person isn't taller than 5 foot, then it implies that the person is shorter than 5 foot, then not allowed to ride. So if you're making some sort of like, I guess like app or something like that, would that make any sense? Does that
Yeah, I
clarify?
think that makes sense.
Okay. Those are some examples, but Obviously you might, I guess, like if you explore computer science more, you'll see that these if you might have a gigantic arrangement of if elif statements. But yeah. Oh. So like here, you could combine a bunch of these logic operators. So remember how we had like we had those things called like truth tables. So in this case, let's look at this example, like green eggs equals false, like ham equals false. If the person does not like green eggs and doesn't like ham, then you print does not like green eggs and ham, and like what the Dr. Seuss said, do not like them semi ham. So the if this is particularly powerful because you could sort of like you could combine, I guess, two questions into one question, or two questions into one if statement, basically. And let's sort of like let's bring like all that I taught you together. So let's go to our I'm gonna bring out our trinket. Oh, actually, I'll explain this code first. But we have our processing, whatnot. And we want to change like the color of the mouse when it enters certain like quadrants of our window. So in this case, if the mouse's X is greater than 250, oop, it's like beyond this line. And it is greater than 250, so it's beyond this line. So it's like really just in this quadrant, then we fill it in green. Otherwise, see how we use else? We don't need to ask follow-up question. We're like telling the computer for everything else, for all the other cases that doesn't fit our first case, just make it blue. And in this case, yeah, and then we draw the circle. But these you guys were a bit you guys asked so many questions regarding the elif and the if statement. You could ask we could sort of reframe this code by, let's say if we wanted to make this quadrant red, we could add an elif statement, a follow-up question, basically. We could be like, if the mouse is in this quadrant, okay, we make it green. Elif the mouse is in the red quadrant. Or, sorry, that isn't a good way to phrase it, but if the mouse is in the green quadrant, then we do this code. Then you could, if that's false, then we ask a follow-up question, is it in the red quadrant? But yeah. Okay. I'll go into like the second quick question, the top hat question. And let's like look at this code here. So if the mouse's X or sorry, we want to know when the color of the circle, what is the color of the circle when the mouse's X is equal to 150 and the mouse Y is equal to 50. So let's look at the code here. So this is like our first question that we're going to ask. Is the mouse within a particular quadrant? If not, then we ask a follow-up question. Is the mouse in this particular quadrant? And if it doesn't fit these both cases, then we go to the else statement, which covers everything else. Everything else. So I'll open up Top Hat. Okay. I'll exit here. Start the question. I hope everyone can see that. But yeah, so if we look here, mouse X equals 100, greater than 100, mouse Y equals greater than 100. That could be, I would assume that could just be, that could be in this quadrant, I think, because mouse X is greater than 100, and it's also greater than this one. So it'll probably be in this quadrant. That's what the first question is asking. And then the second question might be asking if it's in this quadrant. But you just have to be a bit familiar with the coordinate system. We'll get some of the chat. Yep, elif statements. If you go back to that previous example, else doesn't use a condition. It sort of like it just covers all of the other cases that we don't need follow-up questions for. I guess one, you guys were asking like the applications of like an elif. Maybe like in a game, you could have like if HP, our first question might be to ask, uh, if HP is like less than, if HP is equal to 0, then well, game over. Uh, elif, if HP is like, I guess like not equal 0, then you could be, or no, greater than 0, then you could, then maybe, then continue running the game. Something like that. Okay, we have like 37 questions, 37 people answered. Let's check the results. Okay, it's around, most of you guys said blue or green. Let's look back in the code. Let's look back here. So we know that this is like our mouse values. Mouse x equals 150. Okay, let's look at the first one. Is mouse x greater than 100? Yes, that's 150. That's true. Check mark. And mouse y is greater than 100. That is not true. So it's true, not false, and it's bounded by an and, so that's not true. We skip if. We skip this guy. Okay, then we ask our follow-up question. If mouse x is less than 100 or mouse y is less than 100. So remember, or all for an or statement to be completely true, one of these questions just have to be true. And in this case, mouse y is less than 100. That is true. So then I'm going to fill it with green, and we're going to fill it with green. See what most people answered? It is green. That's true. And I just see one question in the chat, or just one comment in the chat. For a shop game, to check if the player can actually buy something, that is actually a good, could use if statements for that. You could compare like the shop's sort of like item price and the balance of the like money that the player has. And Yosef, one question, yeah?
Could you explain again why it's green? I didn't hear it.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. It's just, I'm actually gonna show the code for this one, but basically, go to our quick question right here. Oh, sorry about that. So everyone, you don't have to, it's sort of like ignore the top and bottom, but just focus on this section right here. So if mouse x, sorry. I'm gonna start running it right here. So what I printed down here is our mouse x and y, and it was 150 and 50. So I'm gonna draw the cursor all the way to 150 and 50. It's like around, okay, it's like around here. Yeah, something around there. And the reason why it's green, because if we look at the first if statement, mouse x is greater than 100. Okay, that's true, but mouse y is that greater than 100? No. So that's false. And since we're asking if both are true because of and, then this entire first question is false. We skip it. So then we move up to our following question, our follow-up question. Is mouse x less than 100? Or when we use or, we're just saying if either one is true. And in this case, if mouse y is less than 100, then it's green, check mark. And then we skip else. But basically the first if statement was false. We skipped that. Then we asked our follow-up question, which is the elif statement. And we found that to be true, so we don't have to consider the else code. And then we could just draw the circle. I hope that clarified some things. But yeah. Carson, that is a good example. Like for a shop game, you might want to use a bunch of if or elif or else statements, something like that. We're going to go into our second exercise, which is a bit similar to like this quick question code right here. But how do you make it so that our cursor will draw a different color circle in each quadrant? And these are just some these are just some prompting questions or just some food for thought. Like think about the different if or elif questions you're going to be asking. Like mouse, like say this first if statement sort of asked if the cursor was in this quadrant. So how do you sort of like apply that logic for all the other four quadrants? And with that, I think we'll go into our first breakout room, or second breakout room, sorry.
Hello, yes, what's the question?
Um, I accidentally exited the breakout room. How do I get back in the breakout room?
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna put you into a room and then you'll see a message and you can join it, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Okay, you should have gotten a message.
Never mind. You're muted.
Adrian, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
I keep forgetting that. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. My bad. Exercise. So, sorry. We'll go back into the exercise number 2 over here, but the gist of it is basically if you see, you see this code in the top hat question, you could sort of basically apply the same logic, really. Like if mouse X is greater than 100 and the mouse Y is greater than also 100, then it covers this quadrant. So to cover like this top quadrant right here, you might just have to flip, the inequality sign over here to make it if mouse Y is less than 100. And then you sort of play around with this comparison operator, the greater than or less than. And that's how you could, by making multiple if statements, that's how you could make make this make the cursor red or blue, depending on what quadrant it is. This is sort of like the last topic for today, and this is checking for mouse clicks. Obviously, knowing where the cursor is on the screen is nice, but knowing if a person clicks something is also just as important. And the variable name is called mouse pressed, and it has the value of true or false. So obviously, if you're clicking down on the mouse, it's going to return true. And if you sort of let go, or if you aren't touching the mouse, then it's just false. And this could be combined with if statements. All right, let's look at this example code. If mouse pressed, then that is true in this case. And that's the thing. Mouse press is a Boolean statement, and if statements they just check if true or if false. So all of these stuff back here, this is an entire Boolean statement. So it's just checking if true that it is in this quadrant. And in this case, if the mouse is pressed, then you sort of like print mouse is pressed. Or otherwise, if the mouse isn't pressed, or you could even add another elif statement here, if mouse pressed equals false, mouse is not pressed. But you could also use an else statement right here. So using if and elif and else statements, using combinations of those different logic branches, really just depends on like what you're coding though. So in this case, since we're just checking if the mouse is pressed or if it's not, you just need an else statement. You don't need to add an elif statement. Before I go for the reminder of certificates, I just quickly just want to show you that. What did I do? Okay. Sorry about that. Just share. Oh, I think something happened. Oopsies. Sorry, something happened. Uh, okay, I think we're back. We're back online. Okay, sorry. I just want to show a bit of the code here. Session 3. Yep. Oopsies. Okay, I'll just code it right here. But you could print sort of like mouse pressed here. And then if mouse press print mouse press. Or you could write elif mouse press equals false, then print mouse not press. Obviously it isn't that code, but oh, see how now if I start pressing it and I release it, press it and release it. So you could do some cool stuff with that as well. But I mean, I added an elif statement here. You could also just do this, an else statement here. Let's run that. Oh, but Trinket, I don't know what Trinket's doing. But this has the same functionality basically. Okay, Trinket is bugging out. Let's go back to the slides. So thanks for attending like these past three sessions, but this is just a reminder for some of the certificates. To get a certificate from Schulich Ignite, just attend 6 out of the 8 sessions, and obviously this doesn't include session 0. And you guys might also be wondering about like the exercise submissions. They're like, I know it's like maybe it's been like 2 weeks ago, but we're don't worry about the logistics of that. We're just still receiving submissions, but if you have any questions, you could just ask in the Discord or ask your mentor. And that's basically today's session. Here's some exercises that you guys could do. Oh, this one's particularly interesting. It's kind of like a mouse ball, or it's the pong ball. You might for this one, you might need to adjust like the x and the speed variables. Remember how you add speed x and speed y, but overall, yeah, like Mahak was saying, we're still in the process of marking assignments, so don't worry about that. These are some cool ones just for fun. I recommend doing this one. This one really tests like how you think about variables and also how to use if statements correctly. And yep, this is just about submitting exercises, and I think that's the end of the slides. Yep, Tanisha.
In the slideshow, there's like 3 different slides with the exercises. So one is like the main one you showed. The second one is like the exercise, and then it says bug busters. And then
These
the third one says the exercise, but for the higher level. So which one are we supposed to do if we're in the beginner level?
uh Mahak, I forgot which one. Mahak, can you like clarify that? I forgot
Yeah,
which
I'm
one.
sorry, what was the question?
So there's like 3 different slides with like exercises, but which one are we supposed to do for submission?
So the first one that you see with the exercises, that's the one that's mandatory. After that, it's just for extra points. So in our case, for session 3, slide 36, these 2 are the ones that you're supposed to do. These are mandatory, quote unquote. And then slide 37 and 38, and after that is 37 and 38, you can do them. You don't have to do them. If you do them, you will get your Ignite points. And then slide 39 is just for fun, so that's for practice. Even if you do them, you won't get like any points.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, there's some questions in the chat, so I'm just gonna try to answer them too. What if you don't do exercises and attend 6 sessions? Are you still eligible for a certificate? So I believe you mentioned this earlier, but there's tiers to our certificates. So for the very basic tier, you don't have to do the assignments either. You'll just get it if you attend 6 sessions. If you want the middle tier, you'll have to do your assignments. So you attend 6 sessions and you do like the assignments for all of those 6 sessions. And if you want like the highest tiered certificate, you have to do all the assignments, you have to attend 6 out of 8 sessions, you have to do the final project and attend. Like you don't have to present at the gala, but you have to attend the gala. So I hope that answered the question. Okay, yeah, and that was it for the session. So if there's no more questions, we'll see you guys next Saturday and hope you guys have a good week.
Bye. Thank you.
You guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
I'll miss you. Bye.
Miss you too. I'll hope to see you next week.
All right, bye.
Okay, so like always, if we don't get questions from these mentees, I'm gonna start putting you guys into breakout rooms. And if you have any other questions, you can go to your mentors on Discord